Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Startup Festival backstage chat. I'm Kristen Siapis. I'm the Marketing and Public Relations Coordinator for the School of Dramatic Art at the University of Windsor and for University Players. And tonight's opening night of the festival, we're all very excited. And we're here tonight to share an exciting backstage chat with you with a couple of our directors and the students working on the project. I'd just like to open up tonight acknowledging that there are people joining us from all over Turtle Island, but I'd like to start tonight with our land acknowledgement that we have here at the University of Windsor. The University of Windsor sits on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, which includes the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. We respect the long-standing relationships with First Nations people in this place in the 100-mile Windsor-Essex Peninsula and the Straits, les Détroits of Detroit. Thank you everyone for joining us here tonight, and allow me to introduce to you now our panel. So if our panel can pop on their video cameras, we can meet all of you now. Hello. So we can do this pass the baton style. I'm going to pass it first over to Lee Wilson. If you can introduce yourself to us, tell us what your role is on this project, and maybe something exciting about working on the project.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Thanks so much. Really happy to be here. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Lee Wilson. I'm an assistant professor of acting at the School of Dramatic Art. And I was, director of sorts, director consultant, if you will, on 8 of these pieces. And I guess I'll just say, character study has always been one of my favorite courses in the school. And so the fact that I was able to be involved with Paula and the students on this project was an absolute joy, and it was such a great experience.
Excellent. Let's throw it over to Marc Bondy next.
Thanks, Kristen. And I just want to echo what Lee said about character study. What a terrific opportunity this is for the students. I'm an actor and director professionally, and I have been teaching sessionally at the University of Windsor for about 5 years now. So I've worked with these students right from their first year. So it was really awesome to see them through to their graduating year. And like Lee, I operated as a directing consultant with these pieces. It's theater in the time of Zoom is challenging, and so to have an outside eye, I think, was useful during this process. But the creative control lay with the creator actors. So kudos to all of them for their vision and fortitude on this project.
Thanks, Marc. I'm going to throw it over to Jonnie next.
Hello, my name is Jonnie. I was one of the actors in this process. My play, The Legend of the Flying Tailor, is actually premiering tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, kind of touching on what people have said, it's just been really interesting adapting this project that I've seen over the past 3 years and I know about, and I kind of had some expectations about, and just seeing that change completely from what my expectations were, which was both, it sucked for a little bit, but it was exciting because when expectations are taken away, you get to build up new ones for yourself. And I think that's a part of this that I've really been enjoying, is just being able to kind of create my own expectations.
Excellent. I'm going to throw it over to Alison next.
Hey everyone, I'm Alison Adams. I'm also a 4th-year student. I'm acting I acted in and wrote my character study, which actually is premiering tonight at 7 p.m. Sweet Teeth. Echoing what Jonnie said, it's been a crazy roller coaster. It's been awesome. It's something we've been all looking forward to for 4 years. Just strange how it was presented this year. But otherwise it's the same, and it's everything we all hoped for and we're all nervous about. And anyway, but yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm so happy to share it with you guys all.
Awesome. Well, we're excited too. I'm going to throw it over to Elena next.
Hi there. My name is Elena. My project is called Mi Lagrosa Maria, which will be premiering May 21st at 7 p.m. I had the lovely chance of working with Marc Bondy at figuring out what this kind of in-between space means to me. Something I've really enjoyed about this new approach to character study is that the whole process is mine, and it could be whatever I wanted it to be, which was so scary as an emerging artist, but also so exciting and juicy as a to kind of use to throw ourselves into the real world or the industry or whatever. So it's been hard, and I don't know if I did it right, but I don't think there is a right or wrong way. I think I found my way, and that's something I've really enjoyed, seeing what my limits are or seeing what new pathways are of creating.
So speaking of new pathways and going in new directions, I know that everybody has come into this year, and it's been a year of transition for all of us, moving from in-person performance to virtual performance. We've made a lot of discoveries along the way, but we normally would make a lot of discoveries along this path, and it seems like we're making a double amount of discoveries as we're creating these pieces. So I'm going to open it up to the students for anybody who would like to jump in. What were your perceptions coming into this year, or maybe what can you tell our audience members about what the character study project normally is and the ways that you had to pivot this year, or the ways that your perception changed about it? So jump right in.
I can go. Oh, Elena, do you want to take it away?
Go ahead, Alison.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, yes, it is an in-person show. It's theater. That's the biggest change. But I think a huge change also this year is that we actually had the University of Players staff helping us, and not only guiding us like directorially, like I had Marc, for example, other people had Lee, but also props, costumes, makeup, all that kind of stuff was given to us. In normal times, we would have had to do it all ourselves. So I think definitely, like I agree with what Elena said. It is our project. It's so ours, but it definitely is different because we had like a little bit of a support, because if we really were struggling with finding a prop or something, we could always ask, and they would always deliver. So it was pretty good, and strange, but good this year.
And was the writing different at all? Did you come into this class having a concept of what you might want to write about? Did that change over the process at all for anyone?
I can kind of speak to that a little bit. I know Marc will laugh at me bringing this up, but a lot of my beginning process in this was like, oh, this is hard. I'm not a tech person. I'm not a film person or filming or oh gosh, all this equipment stuff was wild to my brain, still is. Again, I don't know if I got it quite right, but I think that was the biggest leap for me. Is I feel very much inspired by the theater, and I had a really hard time finding that kind of joy of theater and creating theater in this kind of new way. I found my way in the end, of course, so it's been a wonderful process, but that was definitely my biggest struggle was, oh God, this feels techie, this is digital, this is a world I don't understand and don't really have an interest in personally. I'm a very old-fashioned person. So it was both exciting and challenging to kind of just decide, okay, Elena, this is what this is, and whatever it is, it's still theater if you want it to be. And yeah.
Jonnie, did you want to answer that question too?
Yeah, I think it's interesting in that this is even something that isn't COVID related in general, but after so many years of watching other people's pieces, you kind of you try to strategize in your head, oh, this is what I want to do for my character study, and this is what I want to avoid, and this is what I want to aim for with my character study. But as soon as you start writing, it all goes out the window, which was kind of nice to experience in that just in developing my own writing process, because this was the first time that I've ever written a play, it's nice to see that no matter how hard you try to follow what other people have done, your own creative intuition and just your own ideas and your own thoughts are going to take over on their own. So it was just I don't know. I feel like connecting it back to the pandemic, I feel over time my imagination has started to like slip a little bit just because I've been doing like the same things day in, day out kind of. But it was nice to be like, oh no, my imagination's still there. It's still kicking. It just kind of sparked some things that I thought had gone away and just reminded me they hadn't quite gone away yet, which is really nice.
So I have questions about this. When you sit down to write, is it something? How do you connect with your subject matter? Is it? I know the three of you. I have the benefit of having seen a little bit of your pieces so far, so I know that they all come from three very different places. So can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration and maybe what the process is like? I know character study, the writing of the piece is done with with Paula Wing, who is our instructor for that course, and she does a phenomenal job of leading you through that process, but it is an absolute mystery to me. So how do you start with the seed of an idea and how does it turn into a play? Give us like a tiny sense of what that is. I'm going to throw it over to Alison because I know you've done a lot of work with your writing over the last several months.
Yes, several months is right. I actually I came up with this. I mean, a lot of people have come up with their ideas years in advance. My idea it came to me in third year, of this old showgirl who wants to put on a play. That was originally it. Like, she wanted to put on a play. It has changed, as you will see in tonight at 7. But that was the original idea. And what I wanted to originally do was I wanted to do all these voices of all these like objects in her room, talking to her. It became too complicated. I didn't like it anymore, so I dropped that. But I did like this idea and I was very interested in it. So I actually applied in September to a workshop in December about new ideas and writing with through the Canada Arts Council and through National Theatre School grads. I got into that, really helped my idea flourish because I was like, okay, now I kind of understand, like through talking to these like playwrights and stuff, I was like, okay, I kind of understand this now. I really want to go with the direction that I have taken for my play. And then I actually was really exciting this year. I actually took that idea and I applied to the Tarragon Young Playwrights Unit, and I got into the extended cohort for my play, which is really exciting. So my idea has really flourished because of the workshops and the things that I've kind of taken independently with this idea. Of course, Paula really helped so much too, but it's just one of those things where I want to spread the show to not be just a 20-minute show and to be a 1-hour show, fringe show. And that's just something that I want to do personally. And that's why I did all these workshops outside. But that was really my writing process. I did a lot of it myself, but I also had so much help and so much support from groups and people all around. And also Marc as my director, like guiding me. Like, it was so weird to have someone else like look at my script and be like, is this clear? Does this make sense? Like, all these questions. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I got to clear up this unit or anything like that, you know? So all that help, couldn't have done it without couldn't have done it alone. That's all I want to say. Yeah.
Very cool. So I don't know, Jonnie, do you want to talk about how your piece came together? Yeah, go ahead.
For me, and like again, this is my first time writing a play, so don't take any of what I'm about to say as like crash course on playwriting or anything. But for me, it was like when we first started, we would write monologues and we would write sections that weren't necessarily the story of the play, but they still incorporated our character, or maybe it wasn't quite the character yet, but it was a version of the character. And for me, what really helped was just finding the way the characters spoke. And sometimes I was just kind of how I wrote them automatically. Sometimes I thought a little bit, because my character is French as well. So, like, how, with English being their second language, how does that affect their cadence and, like, the grammar that they use and all of that stuff? So, once I had that voice, it was way easier for everything to grow from that. Because instead of having to think about every little bit of a monologue, I could just be like, I have the voice, I know the gist of what they're talking about, and then it kind of grows from that voice. And the fact that I had that voice locked down kind of helped the thoughts grow from it as well, because once I started writing in the way that they spoke, I started kind of thinking in the way that they spoke as well. And it kind of helped everything come together without me having to plan out every part of the play. It still let me like surprise myself in my writing and just start writing and see what grew out of that voice. But for me, it was just like establishing that voice as early as possible so that everything could grow from that. Because if everything was growing from the voice, then everything was also growing from the character and not just from my own head and being like a playwright. Oh, I think this will be cool. It was actually coming from like the character themselves.
That's phenomenal to think about. And I know with your piece, it involves a lot of imagination. Alison involves a lot of imagination. Whereas Elena, I'm going to throw it to you next. A lot of your piece is based in reality, and there's historical context and a real knowledge of who these people are and what that journey is. So what was that like for you, finding the voice of that character?
Yeah, this is a story I've known my whole life. It's based on it's a chapter of my family history. The Maria, the character I'm playing, is my grandmother, very much alive, very healthy. Love her, and I call her my tita. So yeah, my mom and my tita like would tell me stories about how they would travel, and I was always like, even as a child, I was a very avid storyteller. And for absolutely every school project or opportunity I had that involved storytelling, I would tell this story again and again. And it came and left, like all my life. And then this year with the pandemic, I hate bringing it up, but I'm like, oh, every time. But I found a lot of need to come home to myself and my roots. I found myself like at my most vulnerable this year, and a lot of that came with a lot of questions about like, who am I, what am I, oh yeah, you know, being philosophical and questioning life, and a lot of what I found comfort in talking to my family and talking about family history and where we've come from, and doing a lot of research there. And originally in the fall, I was thinking of this piece as like a folklore piece, and kind of doing a really like roots story like in that way. And it of course it was inspired by family and history, but it came back to this one story that I know so well, which is how my grandmother and my mother and my uncle crossed the Rio Grande over to Texas as they were fleeing war in El Salvador, and in the process with Paula, I kept, every time we had little writing prompts, it was always this voice. It was always my grandmother's voice. It was always my tita in my head. And like, oh my God, she's so loud. And then I want her to be, and I want her to be here with me. And this project has been so beautiful in our healing process as a family, in a really unique way. And it's just the tiniest little bit, like 20 minutes of a whole lifetime of history, but it means so much, and it's something that resonates with me deeply. And writing about it came with great difficulty, but also great ease, because I loved it so much. And I wanted to know all these answers, but there were so many questions, and I'm like, who was there, what time, like where, like, and then that difficulty of like, what do I use that is real, and how do I make it magical and make it mine, and heighten it, or find some imaginary elements in there, to make it this theatrical piece. And I think I did a little bit of that, a little bit of both. Yeah, oh my gosh, I don't know where to go from here, but it's just been a wonderful time for me as a person, and a time for me as an artist, and as an emerging artist, I'm finding how much I value where I've come from in order to tell the stories I want to tell. This specific story is a great way to kind of launch myself into that.
Well, I'm going to jump in here, and you, all three of you, have such strong ideas and images in your piece. Just when you're talking about it, you can see the story come alive in you. And with all of that energy and all of that imagination, I'm going to throw it over to Marc and Lee next. How do you take these incredible ideas that these students have and start putting them together as part of the production process in rehearsal, when these pieces are not even finished when you started getting involved in them? Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved and when you entered the process? I'm going to throw it over to Marc, maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. A fantastic question, and yes to everything you just said. I was supposed to direct Amadeus as part of the UP main stage season, and when that show was pulled, for obvious reasons, I was lucky enough to be reached out to by those that had hired me to do Amadeus and say, you know the students, we'd still like to keep you around. Would this interest you? And of course it did. I jumped at it. I had 6 contracts canceled like that, So I was thrilled for the opportunity to have an artistic outlet. That being said, it was terrifying, and Lee can attest to this as well, to be thrown in really late in the game. Normally when you direct a piece, you've had some say in selecting the piece. If you haven't selected the piece, you have an opportunity to read it multiple times before you say yes. Often you're not working with the person who wrote the play. So a lot of things were different and scary for me. And we always came back to, how do we ensure that the students remain at the center as creators? We don't want to take anything away from them as they drive this process through. So early on, we decided we're not going to direct these pieces. That's the wrong word for us. We talked about ourselves as facilitators or consultants, sounding boards, third eyes, and that's kind of what I saw my role. So, I worked with 8 of the 16, and Lee had the other 8 fabulous actors, and each of my 8 that I worked with have a different energy, a different drive. They were at different places along their journey. So, it really was a Rubik's Cube. First trying to sense, where's everybody at? Because I think the first time we met, Alison was my first consult, the first Zoom rehearsal. And, I remember the first time when I met Alison on Zoom for this, and the play wasn't even finished being written yet. So, we were talking large concepts, and we were, I was trying to figure out how to create, the theater for this little tiny camera here. And Elena alluded to it too. They all have. But about, is this theater? Is this film? And that's a lot of the wrestling that we did in the process was about, it's neither theater nor film. It's something different. It's a combination of the two. But at the end of the day, whatever we create together, it was important that these creators could take this show that they're creating for this online virtual platform and plug it into a theater space when live theater does come back, and it will, with a roar. So you'll see all these different pieces created for this platform, and sometimes some of them are more cinematic than others. Some are one take, one location, all the way through without stopping, and others, took weeks and weeks of storyboarding. So you're gonna, the audience at home, I hope you get to tune into lots of these, because you're gonna get to see, a real cross section of creation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've said that to several people in talking about these pieces, and I'm sure everybody here will attest. There are no 2 pieces alike. I think there are, if you watch all 16, you might start to see some connections and some themes and some similar things pop up, but they are all very individual pieces. If you happen upon one that is not your taste, there's a completely different one tomorrow night. Don't worry. There are so many, such a range of wonderful things, and such a range of imaginative pieces that we have on offer throughout this entire month. So that's my little pitch. If you haven't bought your tickets, please go and buy tickets to as many as possible. Go visit the box office and click all of those tickets into your cart, because there are such an amazing range and such a showcase of all of the talents that we have. On that note, I'm going to throw it over to Lee next. I know, Lee, you've worked with these students for a couple of years and you know them. And can you talk a little bit about what it's like for you coming into these pieces and starting to make sense of these pieces as we get through that rehearsal process? What was the building of these pieces like?
Sure. I mean, Marc spoke so eloquently and so beautifully on it. I can just add, personally, it's true. I knew this class really well. I've had a great time with them over the past couple of years, and we kind of had an introduction to this world when we were doing grad recital in the fall. So all of us, if the audience is not sure what grad recital is, here at the school, it's essentially preparing the students for a showcase that happens in Toronto every year, where they would go and they would audition live for casting directors, agents, producers, directors. And this year it was all virtual. So we actually had to film them all, which we did at the Jackman. So we brought cameras in and we filmed them and we had to upload them. So we kind of had a sense of this world, which I think was a bonus. But getting back to your question, I think for me, character study, I've always loved the spirit of what that course is. And I think it's so unique to what the students do here, and to really be able to champion their own work that might go off to be a full-length play. It might be a summer works, it might be a fringe piece, or once again, it could be something that goes to a regional theater. So I really wanted to keep the essence of that. So the way I approached the work was by in the beginning, like Marc said, it was strange because you have no time, and the 8 scripts that I had, they were all in different stages of development. Some of the actors had a script. They were doing small edits, and then there were other students who were still grappling with their ending or how it starts. So for me, it was about just asking them questions in the first few rehearsals so that I could learn as much as possible about where the story comes from. I would ask questions like, okay, well, what's dramatically happening in this moment? And, what's the inner conflict of the character? What's the outer conflict? What's the outer conflict in the world? I guess you would call them more dramaturgy questions, but it was for me to get a sense of what the story is and what the story was they wanted to tell, but also maybe asking a question they hadn't asked themselves, so that when they were trying to explain it to me, pennies would drop for them. So that's where we started. And then once we had a full script, I essentially did uniting with them. I mean, one of my strengths, I think, as someone who was an actor and is a director now, is and something that I geek out on, is text work. I mean, I love text work, and I love language so much. So for me, sitting down with them and just uniting through their scripts together and saying, okay, so where does it shift? Right? Where does the moment shift? Who are we talking to? What's happening here in this moment? And can we title that? Can we say what's happening in this moment? Just to give them a sense, I think, of what the script was. So less me telling them as a director, where to stand and what to do, trying to extract things in the script that gave them ideas. I mean, whether I was successful or not, the students can tell you themselves, but that's how I decided to approach the work. And then when we got into the later game of rehearsals, it was really what Marc said about them being able to bounce ideas off, and saying, Lee, does this work? This is what I'm trying to get across. Maybe if I go over here, does this translate? So that was kind of how it worked for me, which I thought was it was a beautiful experience, because it for me, it was scary. For someone who likes control, I think that's why I went into directing, was because I loved the whole world of the play. I was bored as an actor playing one character. I was the one on stage always saying, you'd be so much better if you just to my other actors, which doesn't work, by the way, because you're
you
not
get
in the moment.
Trouble for that, by
a
the
little
way.
trouble. So, I knew I was supposed to be a director. But I think for me, it was nice because I didn't know what I'm just being honest, had no idea what I was doing or how it was going to come across. And it was scary. But at the same time, there's a beauty in that, in what theater is and how you can be with people in a room and be afraid and not know what the end result is going to be and not know where you're going, but you do it together. And we're in this together, and we're going to have something. We're going to have something. And my gut always knew it was going to be good because these students are terrific and their training is terrific and they take direction so well, and they knew their pieces so well, but we just didn't know what they were going to be. So for me, that was the beauty in all of it.
So I'm going to jump in there. There's so much that we discover in the rehearsal room. There's so much that happens, and in live theater, there's so much that we discover on stage in the moment. But what we're discovering right now is more than just the context of the play itself. We're discovering what this art form is, this Zoom theater that's being created right now. So let's talk a little bit about the different approaches. Maybe I know we've sort of mentioned already that these are traditionally staged pieces. The intention is that you would still, as students, come out of this with a piece that could be staged in live theater versus coming out with a piece that is necessarily specifically film. But I think what we've discovered and what we're going to be presenting over the course of the next month is something that exists in between. It's not quite, a single lockdown shot and an actor just performing a monologue. It's so much more than that. Even in the pieces that are one take from start to finish, there's so much more that happens between the actor and the camera. So I'd love to hear from a performer and from our directing consultants to hear, what do you think you've discovered this year in this world of staged theater meets film meets Zoom theater? What is it? I think I might go to Alison. I know that you have a piece that is sort of more one take from start to finish. And then maybe we'll talk to Elena, because I know your pieces, it features a lot more locations in your 20 minutes. So let's talk about that contrast a little bit. Alison?
Yeah, definitely. My play is a one take. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I did do some cutaways just in case I wanted to change it up if in the editing room, but at a certain point, like, I think it was actually Dave Gauthier. He's the production, what is it called? Manager?
He's our technical coordinator.
He was he actually said something to me. He said it's very impressive that it's a one take. And maybe that's good, like, you know what I mean, for theater and for Zoom theater. And I kind of kept that in my head, and I was like, you know what, like, I love cutaways. I think that they are important, like, definitely. But for my play, it is very exhausting and very physical. So I did kind of wanted to showcase that one take, and it worked for me and it worked for my piece, and that's why I kept it.
And I have, if I can jump in, I wonder if your piece, because of the context of your piece itself, being about a performer who is a stage performer, if that setting, lends itself more to when you have that one shot, it gives you that feeling of the theatricality of the setting. And I think if I can offer this, that something would have been lost with more cutaways, because what we're seeing in your piece is that live performer doing the show for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly that was my process as well. Like, cutaways would have been fine. I don't think it would have really taken away anything, but I don't think it would have added to anything the way that the one shot does. So it worked for me, worked for my piece. That's what I went with. But I don't know, maybe Elena can speak more to the huge cutaways, big change.
And Elena, I know you've got lots of different settings. You've got several different places that we see in your piece. And maybe the question is, if you would translate this into a longer piece or an independent piece later on, would you be looking at sending it more to film, or would you be leaning more to creating a live performance out of it?
Oh God, no.
I know, it's so much.
A live theater performance, please, someday, please.
Yeah.
Because that's how I wanted to tell this story. And I think I do cutaways, and as an actor, especially a theater actor, I still feel like I'm cheating. I feel like that's cheating. But I feel like what's fair about it is that I wanted there to be, sorry, I'm sharing my space today. But I wanted there to be movement, and I wanted there to be visuals. And I think this was my way of doing that, and finding a happy medium, or finding a new way to translate that. This was a very movement heavy piece originally in my mind when I wanted it to be a theatrical piece, and that movement became less so in my body and more so in how I was filming my project, and how I was seeing it and how I wanted others to see it. And I guess we'll figure out if it still counts as theater or not.
I think what we've seen as we've built some of these pieces over the year, since September, we're starting to discover, and maybe this is not news to anybody who works in film, but I think of the people who work in live theater more, it's like a surprise to us. The camera and the Zoom experience, like the laptop camera or the cell phone camera, is a new scene partner for you. It's a new partner to interact with, or a way that you can tell your story through. Sometimes an obstacle, sometimes a support to the piece. So I think, throughout all of these pieces, everybody is using the camera differently. So it's interesting to see how they add movement in places where the actor is completely still, where we see lots of different scenes for one actor to be in. The camera offers some of the movement that the body would offer in a live performance space. So maybe I'll throw it over to Lee. I know you teach our TV and film acting works sometimes here at the school. So maybe can we talk a little bit about what it's like to do the directing consulting with these actors who have less experience with camera than they do in live theater performance?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was, you brought up, Kristen, that was one of the benefits I think about working with this class was I did last year acting for camera with this class. So it was very different. It was in a studio and there was a few cameras, and but I knew they already had a language, and they had already all been in front of the camera, and like I previously mentioned, for grad recital as well. So I knew they all had a really good understanding of how to play with this medium, and that even though there were still some of those nerves, I mean, when I was an actor, I had been in front of the camera for a few years, and I still was always nervous, and it felt foreign to me. And I think that's something that takes time, but that was a huge advantage for us because we had a language already. We had already done a class together. We had already done grad recital. And I think for me, it was really in the back of my head, yes, it was, okay, this is a theater piece. We wanted these to be written for the stage, but you also cannot ignore the medium within your working. So that became a big part of it. I know with the 8 students I worked with, I think I encouraged them to play, to test, to work at home, to try things, to look at different angles, and to maybe record and watch back. I mean, that is one of the big benefits here, is that when you're doing film, it's usually the director or the DOP or the editor who's seeing the footage. But here, the actor can really self-tape and take a look and play with different angles and stuff. So that was encouraged quite a bit. But, in the end, I was really impressed because I know with all of the actors, they all came with a strong idea of what they wanted to do and had a strong idea of how they saw it. and what shots they wanted. So, for me, it was easy. It was really just about, okay, well, is it translating? Okay, I know when we going through our uniting and we were talking about the script, this is what you wanted in this moment. So why don't you try this? Because I think it might actually translate a little bit more. And Jonnie can talk to that, because I know when I was working with Jonnie, Jonnie had a very strong vision of what he saw and what he wanted to do, and he knew his camera shots, and he would do exactly that. He'd set them up, and then he'd say, "Okay, is this translating? How does this look?" And so. Let me say, I was surprised how easy it was. I was very nervous in the beginning because I didn't know what to expect, but it was easier, I think, than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it really came together. I'm excited to share that with all of our audiences now. So we're just coming up. We're starting to run out of time here. I think we have time for one last quick question. And the thought that I want to end us with tonight is maybe if we could each go around and give me a one-line response, if you can think of one. What do you think the future of digital performance is? Is there a future for Zoom performance post-pandemic? Are you ready to throw it in the trash and rock back out on stage? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? If you can sum it up in one line, maybe we'll do a quick go around the circle and wrap it up there. I'm going to throw it over to Marc first.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I'll start. I'll try to keep it brief. I'm ready to throw it in the trash, only because it's all we've had for 18 months. So what I think will happen is there will be a pause immediately after, when we're able to go back live again. I think it'll die down. I think there's a place for it, and I think it's here to stay. I just personally, myself, I need to take a break from the medium. So I'm ready to trash it.
All right. How about you, Jonnie? How are you feeling about it?
I think I'm with Marc that I don't think this is something that's going to go on forever, but I think there's exciting in knowing that this form of theater isn't a permanent thing, that we're living in this weird, like, artistic phase where we know that we're working towards getting out of it, but that means within this time we get to experiment and we get to do things that we wouldn't normally consider or might be a bit too afraid to do on a regular stage. And, like, knowing something isn't forever is sometimes kind of reassuring, which is kind of my opinion on Zoom theater right now.
That's very cool. How about you, Alison?
Yeah, same here. Would love to get back on a stage, but I will say that I think there is a space for digital stuff because the accessibility. It's kind of awesome. Like, I've got family in the States actually, and they can watch for the first time all of my stuff, which is really exciting. And that goes beyond, like, to family, to people with any sort of disability who can't make it to the theater. Like, digital definitely has a space, but I do miss the stage, definitely.
Lee, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think that as we speak, technology is being created by people who now have seen the possibilities with all the theaters and artists throughout the world who've been doing this, and I think it's going to get better. So I think there is a future for it. And I just want to say thank goodness for surrounding yourself with people who are brilliant at this stuff. And, that's a shout out to the staff who, really, they were there when we needed them, when it came to lighting and sound and editing and the camera stuff, all the stuff that's silent in the background. I really needed someone to help me with this format, because it's not my bag. It's not I'm the theater, it's the stage. So I needed a lot of help. And but I tell you, this medium, when you have people who know what they're doing, it's exciting. It is exciting what the potential is. And that's where I'll leave it.
Elena, what do you think? If you're going to write a piece, is it going to be for Zoom or is it going to be for live theater next?
I've already started writing plays specifically for Zoom. Very, very much different from this project and my approach to this project. But I'd love a break. I'd love a Zoom break. I'd love to put pause on that, and I'd like to be taught more. I'd love to, if there's workshops or like other initiatives about how to navigate this kind of medium, I'd love to take them. Because I feel like I jumped in without knowing much, and I feel like I'd love to keep learning more. I love the opportunity to learn, but in an ideal world, I'll be back on stage and I'll be writing for stage and performing on stage. And but I'm not closing a store, just putting a pause on it. As everyone said, I think it has earned a break for sure.
Yeah. Yes, we have all worn out our Zoom licenses this year for sure. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. We're just a few minutes away from our opening night with kicking off with Sweet Teeth by Alison Adams. So join us over on our YouTube page. Buy tickets at universityplayers.com. Please come out and see all 16 performances that we'll be offering throughout the month of May. Remember that if you purchase tickets or if you get a link to the show, our links will all be live throughout the month of May for the StartUP Festival. So don't miss a single one. They're only 20 minutes long. You can fit them in on a lunch break. Please come out and see all of our fantastic pieces. And to all of the people on the panel tonight, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your process with us. And thank you for sharing all of your work with us throughout this festival. Thank you so much and have a great night, everybody.